Well, we are going to do a show today, no matter what. No matter what happens, we're going to do a show. It has been a wonderful, exciting, and very strange day for me. Got a chance to see an old friend I hadn't seen in years. Shout out to my friend Clinton Hope. Shout out to Chicago traffic, which is just like the late, well, not the late P. Diddy. He's still very much alive. But as P. Diddy said before he became a pariah, can't stop, won't stop. And most importantly, we are here to talk college football. Two very important games. One of them is a game that has its own special name and title and gets discussed and T-shirts and whatever. Another game that is very important both from bragging rights rise, but most importantly in terms of establishing how real a particular program is in the SEC East. So I am joined once again, if you're looking directly to either my left or right, depending on how I appear to you on the screen, my co-host, the babyface assassin, Mr. Brock Vieira himself. How are you doing, Brock?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Oh, boy. It's been a very strange day. We'll talk more later. And then directly beneath Brock, the man of mystery, the man who holds down Middle Tennessee and provides it with, if you listen carefully, amazing draft insights, though he's a stealthy man. So stealthy, he's not allowed to be seen with the naked eye. My friend, Steve Morton. You can find him on Twitter at Titans Homer, but that's SMORTON 101368 if my memory still works correctly. And counterclockwise from him, you will find Nolen J. Lake, who is our insider into the land of boomering and soonering, or as some people call it, the land feed, which I don't know if that's okay to say, but either way, the point is that particular program, which is always on the important programs, amongst the programs that everyone pays attention to. Either they're noticing how good they are or wondering why they aren't as good as they should be. But no matter what, you have to pay attention to both of these programs, right? For sometimes different reasons. So I will start with, I love having you on, Nolen, but since we've never, ever successfully managed to bring Mr. Steve Morton on, aka Mort, aka Tartan's Homer, I actually will begin with the man of mystery. So
I have no clue what's going on with this camera.
I get it. Either way, it makes me feel like you're in an undisclosed location. So coming from an undisclosed location, we have Steve.
Yeah,
Morton.
Traffic was terrible today. I walked, from my office 10 feet into this room to do this show. So just traffic was awful. Barely made it.
Yep.
Steven, let's be real. You are undercover in Gainesville right now, trying to get as much film as possible.
He's in deep cover. He's in an undisclosed location being guarded right now. But I'm going to start with talking about this game. First of all, Tennessee, quiet as kept, has been killing it, Steve, in the recruiting game, despite the fact that some people wondered in this new landscape of college football how the Volunteers would do. Let's start with that, and then we'll talk about the game. What do you think has been the key to the Volunteers' run of successes in the last couple of recruiting classes?
I can give you three letters. NIL. My big old dollar sign would probably be another one. Tennessee really early on understood what the NIL landscape, what the new landscape was. We're one of the really first ones to start a collective, fund it well. And on top of that, they have a staff of guys like Rodney Garner and the Willie Martinez, who know how to get out and convince kids to come to Tennessee. So the athletic department as a whole in the Danny White administration is, all the, the rising tides really lifting all the boats. So they, basically have excelled in everything except, strangely enough, women's basketball, which is probably where Tennessee made its original hay. So, but yeah, the Tennessee's really mastered the NIL game. And so that's, you master the NIL game in the new landscape. That's where you go. They were the first school the NCAA came after. They were the school that sued the NCAA successfully. So, you can go with a lot of ways, but the big recruiting news in Tennessee really comes down to their NIL game is tight, and was, they understood the landscape and took advantage of it pretty quickly. So,
yep, well, that's everything you said was indisputable. Now we're going to talk about the game itself. Florida is a massive underdog to Tennessee. I don't know how you feel about that. I know you're basically a cautious man by nature, Steve. How do you view this game with Florida coming in as a double-digit underdog?
So on talent, they probably should be an double-digit underdog. But here's my reaction is if you can't score 14 points, there's no way you can win by 14 points. The offense for the last 2 weeks, either Oklahoma and Arkansas are equivalent to the early 90s Alabama had Derek Thomas, or that offense is just stunk for the last couple of weeks. Just the passing game completely has disappeared. And once the passing game disappears, I mean, the idea of the spread the hurry up spread is to force the defense into an impossible choice of, do you let us just bang into the middle with an advantage, or do you try to stop the run and then open yourself up to throwing it deep? But if they're not hitting the deep shots, you make it easy. And Oklahoma did an excellent job of showing what to do and stopping the run game with size, and then still not having to really compromise themselves on the back end.
Okay. I'm going to open it up real quick to Brock, my co-host, and then we will bring Nolen. Of course, Nolen has watched carefully, including the Tennessee game, so we'll get some insights into maybe what he noticed about Tennessee as well. But yeah. So, what questions do you have for Steve Morton?
I think the first question I have is, what happened last week against Arkansas? Not only did the Volunteers lose, the way they lost, honestly, kind of disturbing. So, can you break it down? What went down in that game?
So, what's really went down, I think, the last 2 weeks is that the passing game really is almost. I mean, it's been completely non-productive. I mean, they just can't hit any big plays, and teams are now able to stop, the inside interior runs that were ripping off big runs earlier in the year. They've really kind of, the last couple of weeks, those teams have dared Tennessee to beat them over the top, and they haven't been able to do it. And so, and that's really put a lot of pressure on a defense that's really performing well. The question that I have with the defense on the defensive side is that defense good, or have they just been playing teams that are really, really bad? So on offense, Tennessee had no answer for Landon Jackson. None. I mean, there is a hilarious video out there of Lance Hurd basically looking like he's trying to dance the polka in front of him. So, and essentially, and that's really been that way for a couple of weeks. They really couldn't stop the Oklahoma pass rush either. So, the passing game has completely gone away, and without the threat of those big plays, the offense is just completely stalled. And so, if you're playing games where the scores, where you're scoring 14, 17 points, you're vulnerable because, I mean, just a couple of big plays and you're going to lose. And so that's really what happened at Arkansas. Essentially, they played that game like the other team couldn't score, and well, they did. So, just they got to find a way to not be. I mean, it does, you don't. I don't know that you have to score 70 or 80 like they, like they were doing earlier in the year against against admittedly not Southeastern Conference competition, but they can't be going. You're not going to go anywhere scoring 14-17 either. You're not going to beat good teams. And the thing about it is their season's still in front of them. If they win the rest of their games, if they beat Georgia, if they beat Alabama, no one's really going to care that they lost to Arkansas at the end of the year. I would say though, if you look at their schedule, it looks, it looks a little daunting. You've got Alabama and Georgia, always going to be tough in front of them, but also schools like Vanderbilt. Pavia looks like he's just a game changer of a play, of a quarterback. And clearly, I mean, the Vandy beat Alabama last week. So, and you got Kentucky, who I don't know that they can score, how much they can score, but they surely can stop other teams from scoring. With their combination of the back end coverage and just the big guys that they have up front. So, it's a pretty daunting schedule. But like I said, they run the table. No one's going to care. If they don't, no one's probably, the people are probably going to care because it's going to be a disappointing season. But really, Nico has not played well the last couple of weeks. And there's just no really other way to say it other than that. And in this offense, if the quarterback doesn't play well, you're just not going to score a lot of points.
So it kind of moves on to kind of the next question that as we're going on in the conference in general, we had a report come out 2-3 weeks ago that said that the SEC and the Big Ten were looking to have 4 teams that are automatic qualifiers into the college football playoff. Obviously, that's not the policy yet, but if I'm not mistaken, there's no undefeated team in the SEC. Everyone has at least one loss. With that being said, how many teams do you think the SEC can legitimately put into the CFP?
So I know it's it's hard to they're not really been in the SEC long, and Nolen surely hopes this isn't the case on Sunday, but Texas is still unbeaten.
Yes, correct.
Yes, they are.
Yes. Still trying to wrap my head around Texas being in the SEC.
So, but I'm sure Nolen would hope that at the end of the Red River rivalry that once again Oklahoma slides the knife into Texas. So, but I don't think you're going to get 4 because I don't think you're going to have I don't think you're going to have 4 teams with 1 loss. I mean, so. Still looking out in front of that. So, but I mean, I could see each of those conferences maybe getting 2, 3. With the Big Ten outside of Ohio State, and Indiana. I mean, Indiana's played fantastic football in the first half of the year, and Signetti is just he's an outstanding coach. Mm-hmm. So, outside of those teams, how many are there really going to be? But then again, how many really great teams are there? That comes down to it. And you've got to know the television folks aren't going to want to see a whole lot of non-SEC, Big Ten, with a sprinkle of ACC and Big 12 in there on their television. Though I will say this: I am rooting for Boise State to somehow break into the playoff because I want to see Jonte play against those bigger schools, and he might be the most fun player to watch in the nation right now.
Yes, he is without a doubt one of the most special talents I've ever seen at the running back position since arguably LaDainian Tomlinson, if I may be so blunt or maybe so controversial. With all that being said, obviously Boise State does have the benefit of having the non-Power 5 automatic qualifying bid available to them should they win the Mountain West. Could you see a scenario where we see maybe 3 to 2 teams from those big conferences and then potentially they include one of those burgeoning non-Power 5 teams that didn't have that automatic qualifier, like a Liberty, a UNLV, something like that? Or do you still
I
think
really
that
think if you're a non-Power 5 conference, you're going to have to get in with the committee's not going to they're going to find a way to not put you in. So and they'll use the strength of schedule. They'll use a few other things, but yeah, I just don't see where you're going to have the non-Power 5 conferences get more than one. And the power conferences set this up, and they didn't do it to set it up so that their schools were sitting at home watching someone else play.
Right.
So that I just, and to be honest, the television partners really want to see that. They want to see the Texas, the Michigans, the Ohio States, the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Tennessees, the Oklahomas, the USCs. They want to see the schools that essentially draw a lot of eyeballs. And unfortunately, I mean, you can knock it any way you want to, but Liberty's not going to draw as many eyeballs, though Liberty is like probably one of the wealthiest pro colleges in all of the country. So, I mean, they definitely in an NIL era could conceivably just build a dominant program with the amount of money that they can raise. So,
Liberty got that private Catholic fund ready to, spurge. But I mean, to be honest, I just want to add this part. There's a lot of odd teams that are having ridiculous NIL funds come up. Obviously, Liberty has a potential for one of them. Sacramento State is another team that just randomly decided that they have millions of dollars. Somehow Stanford is broke, but Sacramento State has got enough money to build a new stadium and go to the Pac-12. And we're seeing it all around the country. My last question for you, Stephen, before I turn it over back to Bill. When it comes to this game, third Saturday in September, even though we're the second Saturday in October now, who cares about names or titles anymore? What about Florida? Do you believe that they have a legitimate threat to knock off Tennessee, especially in Knoxville? And secondly, who do you think is going to be the primary starting quarterback for the Gators entering this game and throughout this game?
So I'm going to say that I want to say no, they have no chance, but it's Florida, and Tennessee finds ways to lose to Florida. So, it's one of those things that as a fan, I would just like to be over with and get a win. I think they're going to play Mertz. I don't think they should, because I don't think the team is really. I mean, they're not in a position. They're in a position that they really should be thinking down the road. But then again, Napier probably. I mean, his down the road is probably whenever the boosters decide that they, that they can cover the rest of the deal and just pay off his payoff. So it'll come down to. It'll be more about Tennessee. Does Tennessee play well to win? Play well enough to win, but they showed Florida's not that much worse than Arkansas. So, so they can lose. They could lose to them. I think the line is a little large, considering the way Tennessee's played the last couple of games.
Yeah.
Coming out of the NC State game, I would have said 14.5. Smash that. That's light. But after the last couple of games, the way the offense has played and looked like it really hasn't had any hope whatsoever, any answers whatsoever to any kind of pass rusher with a pulse. And of course, Landon Jackson's a lot better than to say the guy with a pulse. He's an NFL defensive end, but as far as I'm concerned, they should win, but they could very well and easily lose.
I actually have a follow-up question to that, and that's just basically what you said. If Florida pulls this victory out, do you think Napier gets another season?
Nah.
It's done.
Nah.
No matter what.
He's gone. They-
I was trying to be optimistic for a second, and I realized it's not a good look on me.
Well,
Back
it's
to
just
some
so funny
cynicism.
because I'm shocked you hadn't fired him already, Brock. That's kind of your thing.
It is, but there's something about Florida right now. I can't quite explain it. There's a mist in the air. There's a fogginess that I can't quite see through that somehow illuminates a path where Napier could be the Florida Gators head coach in 2025. Do I think it's going to happen? Lord, no. Do I think that there's a potential that's going to happen? I think it goes up what's that word? Astronomically if he knocks off Tennessee. So that's why I asked.
So I think there's a better chance they make a deal with the devil and bring Urban Meyer back.
Urban, I don't think Urban wants to go back to Florida though. I think that's too much of a challenge. He wants to go someplace easy. I think he's waiting for Ohio State to screw up again, and then he's going to go back to the Buckeyes more than he'll go back to the Gators, in my humble opinion.
Huh.
Bill, it's going to be Lane. We all agree with that, right? It's going at the end of the day, it's going to be the guy that Bill fired 6 years ago. Wouldn't even let back on the plane.
I honestly, now that you mention it, I don't think it's going to be Lane Kiffin. I think that his situation at Ole Miss is a lot better for him. I think that he enjoys being the king of Oxford and not really having any issues. Like, no one's talking shit about Lane Kiffin, even though he had an unbelievable loss to Kentucky. When he goes to Florida and he doesn't come out the gate hot, I think that people start talking shit real quick, and he doesn't want to deal with that. He did it.
Bill and I both have experience with Lane. Lane left me. Lane ghosted me on the date, and then Bill wouldn't even let him back on the plane and told him to catch a bus back.
I have a love, hate, whatever, something like Lane Kiffin is fascinating. And what makes him so fun is that he plays the game, right? I mean, he's into it. He's in on the joke. That's the thing I like about Lane Kiffin. And of course, both Steve and I and Brock and I, and I don't know if Nolen knows our common connection to the Ole Miss program and to Coach Kiffin, but some of us have a someone very closely placed to Coach Kiffin. So we talk. My source and I talk, and Kiffin has mellowed kind of. He's not quite the same cocky douche that maybe he once was, but mostly, or at least he's a different kind of that.
Cocky
but
douche.
Mostly, he keeps it fun. Like everything I'm hearing, it's a fun, upbeat place to be. He keeps it, he makes everybody feel like, hey, college football's fun. Like he does bring the fun aspect. So I'll give him credit for that. I want to transition.
How did that work with Nick Saban?
Well, I don't know if Coach Saban really embraced the fun to the same level, maybe that Coach Kiffin did. But here's what I've given to understand. There were times when Coach Saban would turn certain things over to Coach Kiffin for him to play certain kinds of music or do certain kinds of things within limits, would turn things over to him.
That's the key word, within limits.
Within limits. But yes. This is a great time to transition, since we talked about the Tennessee-Oklahoma game, to bring our Oklahoma insider, Mr. Nolen J. Lake, and discuss maybe what he noticed in preparing for that game when he sort of broke down Tennessee, and maybe what he sees in the future for Tennessee. And then we'll talk about the game of games, the game that has many names, the Red Rivalry, the shootout, the whatever it's been called throughout its history. It's been called lots of things, and it's led to fist fights, broken marriages, etc. But I would definitely like to bring Nolen on and ask him about what he thought when he watched Tennessee, and like I said, where he thinks they might be headed, and then we'll talk about Oklahoma. Nolen, the floor is yours, my friend. Uh-oh.
No, you with us?
Nolan? I see you, but I can't hear you. Oh, muted. Let me see. Oh, looks like you're having a mic problem of some sort. Oh, there we go. Okay, try speaking in, Nolan. Oh, it's a headset problem, maybe.
No, I think I go to your settings and switch your stuff to your headset. In the meantime, just want to add this real quick to about third Saturday in September. That's taking place in October, because that's what we do now in college football. This game, I think, is a program-defining game for both Tennessee and Florida. Should Florida lose, it's over. They got blown up. They got to rebuild. But there's something special happening with the Gators right now that I can't quite put my finger on. Obviously, they blew out Mississippi State, who's led by the worst coach in all college football, Jeff Lebby, and that's not an impressive feat in itself. But in a game in which UCF has, for most parts, been more successful than Florida in the non-football aspect of things, Florida sent a message against UCF the other day when they beat them in the Swamp. I don't think the Miami loss is as bad as it was anymore. Should Napier be able to win 3 to 4 more games, including Florida State, I think there's a strong possibility he comes back this year. If he loses Tennessee, it's over. But if he beats Tennessee, that's a requirement. I think that it's on that Napier could return. The bigger picture about this is, regardless whether Napier is there or not, the issues surrounding the Gators far outweigh the head coach. And Lane Kiffin, nor Nick Saban, nor Urban Meyer will be able to fix that until Florida gets serious about the fundamental flaws within their program in terms of their ability to recruit, their ability to pay players, and their ability to get players in the portal. They're not going to be a successful program. And they need a director of player personnel, general manager, something that understands those needs. And they need one of those guys now. For Tennessee, this is a huge game for their season. Should they lose to Florida, that will be their second straight loss to Florida. I believe they're, third in the past 4 years, if not even more as the years go on. Tennessee's ability to beat Florida has been questioned time and time again. And right now, Tennessee should, without a doubt, beat the living bricks off of Florida. Should they not, Tennessee needs to start asking themselves some serious questions about the way they go out and recruit players. Now, I believe Heupel is a solution for the future, without a doubt, and I'm not questioning his job in any single way. But what I am saying is that I have massive question marks about how well this Tennessee coaching staff can operate after the departure of Alex Golesh a couple years ago when they won the Orange Bowl. I honestly think that they need another mind in there, especially on the offensive side of the ball, to dumb down the offense just a little bit more so that they can get good, productive yards and keep moving the chains. Because as we've seen in the previous weeks, the Volunteers have looked like a chicken without a head, and they have been running around for their lives and being very unproductive and a part of the game that they have been the most productive of in these past several years. So I think this game, for those reasons and more, is going to be defining for both these teams. Nolan, we got you ready to roll?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Woo! All right. So I was going to say, or what I was saying was, I was from the very get go. The one thing Coach Heupel, he's a legend in Oklahoma. My best friend was roommates with him at OU. They both played on the team together. Just strong bond there, strong relationship. Got Heupel Foundation that was started here. His dad running camps here, from way back, and I hated the way that things went down for him. I was definitely on his side of things, but at the same point, he needed to go. He needed to listen. Oklahoma should not be anybody's first OC job.
Fair.
I mean that's how I feel right now with Seth Luttrell. Even though it's not his first, it's his first in a while. I'll get to that in a minute. It was, he didn't have an identity then, and that was every game that he while he was OC at Oklahoma, that's 13 years ago, and I remember every game going, what are we trying to do? What's the point of this offense? What's it trying? what's it trying to produce? And
Mm.
so I'm certainly glad for his success that he's had. Great person, great human being, and pre-game they did like a video highlight of him, did a huge welcome for him, standing ovation from 90,000 people. You could tell it was just from that. So I was glad from that part. But once the game started, I wasn't happy about much of anything. Defensively, we did everything we could. Offensively, right now, and maybe a miracle will happen tomorrow. But offensively, right now, we look like a Keystone Cops, Three Stooges. It's just we have no identity again. I think Seth Luttrell has been asked to do things that he doesn't know how to do in order to come in and keep Jackson Arnold from transferring. He was asked to run an offense that he's not familiar with, and it showed. Seriously, he's not an RPO offensive-minded coach, and last week they cut out the RPOs and looked a little better. But I'm very anti-homegrown hires. I was against Josh Heupel's hire as an offensive coordinator. I just thought this will not end well. I'm as soon as Seth Luttrell was hired, I was like, why? Like, why would what? And I mean, this was my question to y'all. I mean, Oklahoma's a whether you like them or not, they're a blue blood football team.
Agreed.
What blue blood would have hired Seth Luttrell to be offensive coordinator?
None.
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, the last few years, our tight end room has been one of the worst in the country. Absolutely zero production. And what do? We promote that guy to be co-offensive coordinator. Another homegrown guy, John Finley.
Oh yeah,
right.
I remember him. Yeah.
Right, and so what you get is what you saw that first part against Tennessee, where it's like, it was like, is John Blake on the sidelines over there?
No.
No.
Just unforced things. And when Michael Hawkins comes in, all of a sudden it's like, you know what? Let's do away trying to run RPO stuff. Let's just call the play. Let's go out and run it. Take the choices away. We're going to call the plays. This is what you're going to do. And you can say, well, it was against Tennessee at the end of the game. Well, they actually blitzed him 17% more than they did Jackson Arnold. And so it wasn't a case of the defense just stopped playing. It was, a different guy running a little bit of a different system where he could just go out and make plays. As far as Tennessee on the offensive side, there's a couple throws that Nico made that you're like, man, that's incredible. Like he flashed some really good things. But then, I feel the way that offensively Oklahoma was playing, I felt like Tennessee, once they reached 20 points, was like, we don't need to do anything else.
Absolutely. They even Coach Heupel said that post game, that they really got to a point where they just believed the only way they would lose is if they turned the ball over.
Right. It was 22-3, and it felt like 49-3. In the third quarter, it was just like there's nothing offensively that Oklahoma's going to be able to do, and so he went really super conservative. Lots of first and second down, runs. Oklahoma's hard to run against. Last week against Auburn, Hugh Freeze come out and just said, obviously they had some success throwing the ball, but he said they're hard to run against. He said,
what do you guys list Stutzman at? Because he's 275 or 280 if he's a biscuit.
Stutzman is about he's listed about 250, 244, 245.
That guy looks as big as a defensive tackle.
He is everywhere at all times.
Big boy.
Yeah, and so anyway, as far as Tennessee goes, should Tennessee beat Florida? Absolutely, and I'm right with Steve on this. And here's my deal with Florida, Brock, and Napier. This is my. You just keep watching, thinking, okay, this is going to be over with, and they're just going to start winning. There's just for some reason there's some false idea even in the back of my head that okay, this is it. They're going to start winning because you look at, I remember when they started against Miami, and I thought they're going to beat Miami. Just look at the athletes they have and look at who they have, and it was just like, oh, they're terrible. And you don't expect it for whatever reason. Even now, this far into his tenure, I still have a hard time believing that the guy can't do it.
That's fair. I completely understand where you're coming from. I'm not endorsing Napier with my early statements. I want to make that very clear. I just think if you're Florida, you got to ask yourself, who can we legitimately get that's going to be a massive improvement that's worth the buyout for Billy? And I don't see anybody that's available or will be available that can ascend into that role. And Lane Kiffin is not coming to Florida. I want to make that very clear. Like, I don't know how much more clear I can be about that. He's not coming to Florida.
I don't have any real connections inside Ole Miss football, but Coach Bianco, the baseball coach, is a friend, and I've done some training with his son, and he talks about how Lane is around Oxford, and just truthful, Lane is king. This is all the things he's done wrong at Tennessee, all the Raiders and USC and all the things that he has done. You cannot be more Mississippi than Lane Kiffin. You can't. The people love him. Those couple of years we had him and Mike Leach together was just incredible. It was just incredible for the Egg Bowl. It had people watching it who don't really even care about Mississippi State or Ole Miss or even the SEC, just watching it just because it's Mike Leach and it's Lane Kiffin. And he brings something to the table there, and talk about NIL money. My goodness. I don't know who all those lawyers are that Ole Miss was able to dig up, but man, those guys love them some Ole Miss football.
They're the one exploiting homeless big black kids and turning them into offensive linemen and then send them to Ole Miss. Those are the fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now that we talked about bad offensive coordinators, and for kind of a Florida thing is, I'm kind of surprised that no coach has thrown a lot of money at Dan Mullen to be their OC. They put up elite numbers with Kyle Trask.
Yeah. I have a theory about that. Oh, sorry. Go for it, though.
I was just going to say, my thinking is maybe he's happy with what he's doing. I'm sure the offers have had to have been there.
I don't think people like Dan Mullen. I think Dan Mullen took a lot of people off.
There's that too.
But I'm sorry. I've seen some of these guys who keep getting jobs after jobs, and they're absolute garbage. Bill and I have coined the term "failing up," and it's true. Like, there's a lot of coaches in college football and football in general who are absolute dumpster fires. They keep getting job. Scott Satterfield is my number one example. They keep getting job after job after job, even though they suck. So I think it's more of a personality thing than a performance thing for Mr. Mullen.
Now,
that's just
real quick on Tennessee again. One of the things that I did hear from the program was back in January, there was 3 schools that Oklahoma was already, the defensive coaches were already working film more than anybody else, and those games were Ole Miss, Tennessee, and LSU. And so I felt like part of their success against Tennessee was just like, as far as preparation goes, they spent a lot of time, and Brent Venables is very familiar with Josh Heupel. I felt like that was part of it too, was just a familiarity, because Hype's still doing a lot of the same things he's always done. It's still what he did at UCF, and really the issue with Oklahoma was Bob wanted him to run an offense that featured a more mobile quarterback and, featured a more of a quarterback run game. And it just never happened. And so he, the decision to go to someone else. But, he's still doing a lot of the same things. And guys, I've got a theory, and this is off topic maybe a little bit. I just want to hear what you think.
Huh.
I've said this the last few weeks, and looking at Lincoln Riley's offense is ranked in the 50s right now. Looking at what Jeff Lebby has not doing at Mississippi State, what the offenses look like at Oklahoma, as far as it's a little bit of an Art Browse-esque type offense. I'm really starting to think we're starting to see some of the shelf life of these offenses.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like these offenses, they have a shelf life. In the modern day football, I believe an offense has a shelf life, and eventually people just figure it out. And if you don't change what you're doing, you're going to start to find yourselves year after year kind of slowly, coming back down to earth. And I like hype. I like what he does, but there needs to be, I think, he needs a voice there to kind of get him out of the mold of still doing Josh Heupel things on offense. Someone who can challenge him to step outside of his methods, his play calling. Someone who can get him outside of who he is, and because I feel like you see that defensive coaches, when they become head coaches, typically are able to stay near the top a little bit longer than offensive coaches. It's because defensive coaches can adjust more. They can, they're more liable to hear what someone else has to say about defense than an offensive coach is. And so I think at some point, Josh, and I don't know what that shelf life is, if it's 6-7 years, 7-8 years, but I really think that's what's going on with Lincoln Riley's team right now. Is you started to see it his last year at Oklahoma, and my God, you had Caleb Williams at quarterback, so can't really say a whole lot about that. But as far as when he first went to USC, but you're just starting to see some of these elite offenses, the production is beginning to slide down, and I think, Brock, the name being kicked around Oklahoma right now, since you're in Las Vegas, is Marion.
Yeah, y'all can quit with that shit. I just want to make that very clear. Like, he would be a phenomenal hire for you guys, but hell no.
He would be a phenomenal hire for anybody. So,
right.
But,
that's
do y'all
that's the
favor
number
and
one
look
name
some
kicked
up.
around, is him. But shout out to Barry Odom out there, what he's doing. But Barry and I were high school rivals. We competed each other in high school. His town is about 20 miles that he grew up in, is about 20 miles to the west of us, and they were our main rival in football. So I know Barry, and I know Brian. Great family, great coach. Knew he's going to win as soon as he went out there. It's just he's just going to find a way. But Marion's been a name that's been kicked around a lot, and I'm like, that's honestly the only hire that really interests me.
I understand why. I think he fits the molds of what Oklahoma needs in terms of having a balanced offense with a quarterback that can move but doesn't necessarily need to. In that sense, I think you're seeing a lot more with Malik Williams out here in Vegas than you do at Matt Sluka. Because no offense to Matt Sluka couldn't throw the ball for shit. With that being said, I think the question remains is Marion willing to be a part of that at Oklahoma, considering the landscape of where the Sooners are at the moment as a team? And what I mean by that is, let's be real about Oklahoma right now. They're not remotely close to being a national championship looking squad. That's just unfortunate reality of it. And it's going to take a couple of years for them to get the players in and develop them in order to being that kind of high caliber team. With that being said, we are in year 3 of the Venables experiment, and it has not produced the desired results. How much more time does Venables have to turn it around? And is Marion willing to take that chance with him? Uh, like, and knowing that he might be on borrowed time. That's my only question when it comes to will Marion go to Oklahoma. If there's assurances that Venables will be around for more than 2 years, I think Marion's gone no matter what, unfortunately. But that's just my kind of little insight and take with that situation.
I think the Zach Alley hire to be defensive coordinator um, elongated his opportunities there at Oklahoma, Coach Venables, um, because I mean, and he basically he runs what Coach V does. He knows Coach Venables' defense better than Venables does. Um, I think we've seen so far this year um, that hire may be the hire that has saved his job this year. Um, great, great coach, great future ahead of him. Um, I feel like the fact that even that Tennessee game, and you're just watching, and they did a lot to keep Jackson Arnold here when
Yes.
Levy left. They did a lot. There's no doubt in my mind the kid can play. I've seen him in person in high school. Kids just don't forget how to play football.
Yes.
He was highly recruited for a reason. He can do some things. Um, I feel the fact that listening to Venables in press conferences talk about the offense and just straight out saying those play calls suck. In post game at excuse me, against Tennessee and even against Tulane, he just said, those things we're running. He said they're terrible. They're terribly designed. They're terribly, and so I really feel like what happens in this off when if we leave this season, we start next season with Seth Luttrell at OC. I think you're going to see the hot seat turn up really quickly.
Mm.
That's just the move he's going to have to make. You know, he's got to put someone in there that knows what they're doing. I feel like if he's willing to do that, if he makes that move, I think he adds a couple of years as far as opportunity to get it right here. Now I can tell you, even just take away tomorrow's game before we get back to it. We play at Ole Miss. We then have a week off because we're playing. Oh, he's playing Maine. Uh, go to Ole Miss.
Name.
We go yeah,
Damn.
the mighty. Yeah, that's
Names.
that's going to be a nail biter. Get that SEC middle of the year schedule going there. Um, we go to Ole Miss, go to Missouri, have Alabama at home, then go to LSU. That's the last 5 weeks of the season. At Ole Miss, at Missouri, Alabama at home, and then at LSU. If Oklahoma can somehow squeeze out a 3-2 out of that, I think that'll make a lot of people happy as far as going into next season. There's a good chance. I mean, realistically, come out of that 1-4. And I think if we do come out of that 1-4, I think all of a sudden things begin to change. Temperature goes up again.
Mhm.
I don't really feel necessarily a lot of things are riding on tomorrow, but that last half of the season, if going to Ole Miss, and somehow Missouri has become a rival to us, I don't know how that's happened. But right now, honestly, before last week, I didn't think that game was winnable for us. All of a sudden, it is. Who knows what Alabama is going to do when they come to town? But that last few weeks, and Steve, maybe you feel like this right now in the SEC with the teams that are in there, you can go 8-4, maybe 7-5, and have a really good football team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you just look at the schedule
Easily.
and all the teams in it, and you're just like, we may finish 8th in the SEC and have a really good football team.
Yeah.
Which that's the landscape
arguably,
now.
Yeah, there's arguably only two trash teams in the SEC right now. That's my final statement. Unfortunately, I have to do an early departure tonight. But there's only two trash teams in the SEC right now, and that's Auburn and Mississippi State. Everybody else has shown something. Even South Carolina, defensively, they've shown something. This honestly might be the biggest argument about why conference realignment is bad. These era has 6 to 7 championship level teams essentially knocking each other out, while a team that is of lesser quality could eventually get into the playoffs just because they play at a different conference. And I think that a lot of these teams that moved, Oklahoma, USC, Washington, Oregon, Arizona right now, they're kind of experiencing that and like, oh, what happened? We were either on the come up after last year or we did something in the offseason that gave us a bunch of hype about this upcoming year, and now we're getting our teeth kicked in these new conferences. And unfortunately, I think that this is going to be something that's going to be prevalent moving forward. Before I depart, I just want to say thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Noah, for coming on. I know Bill has a bunch of great questions for you. When he returns, we're going to take a quick commercial break. And for all you guys watching, College Football Forecast is back. Bill, I'm going to hand over the reins to you. I just want to wish you guys all a good night.
Well, Brock, I will graciously accept said reins, and I will pick this thing up and keep going. I'm going to jump to, I guess, back to Steve for a second, and then I'll bring Nolen back in. It wouldn't be a show that I was doing if I didn't talk pro prospects. That is. I'm now at the point in the season when I'm starting to put together positional rankings and starting to think about what teams could use what, because that's who I am, and I'll probably never change. So, Steve, Tennessee, as always, has some legitimate pro prospects. Even in the dark days, there were always good players to come out of Rocky Top. When you think about guys that are Sunday guys that are on that volunteer roster, who's some of the guys that you think have the best chance to show up on Sundays and be productive pros?
The defensive lineman, definitely. From Pierce to the God, his name escapes me, number 19. But the interior linemen, Simmons, Thomas, and Norman Lott are all NFL players. McCoy on the corner is a good player. Arion Carter, the two Carter guys are the Arion Carter and Boo Carter. Those two kids they're going to they're a freshman and a sophomore, and they're next level type players. That was one of the things I think Tim Banks said is, yeah, we lost a lot of experience in our back seven, but we got a lot, we're a lot more athletic with the new players that we have. With the recruiting that's gone on the last couple of years. Those are NFL players. I still think Nico is an NFL player. Right now, I think Nico is if you saw his 20 best throws, you would say, oh my gosh, this guy's the first pick overall. It's the ones that aren't his best throws. He's got to get that consistency. The best NFL quarterbacks are consistent. But, I mean, he's also, I think, still, 19 years old or something like that. So
yeah, he's 19. Yeah.
So, and I mean, I would, if people look at how much better Jaden Daniels got between 19 and, before he went where he is now. I mean, he's maybe one of the 12 best quarterbacks on the planet right now. So, and a lot of the wide receivers are NFL players. I think Thornton is maybe the best of the prospects, and maybe Matthews, who hasn't gotten to play yet as a freshman, but those are NFL players, and Dylan Sampson's an NFL player too. So I'd say those are the guys that you're looking at, and maybe Cooper Mays. You're looking at the interior as a center. And he's a guy that is a competitive player, but his guys also had a lot of injury issues. So you're kind of think theirs. But those to me are the NFL players on the Vols, the defensive linemen, the wide receivers, one of the corner that McCoy, who came over from Oregon State. those are really the guys that are in my mind NFL players on the Tennessee staff. And we haven't seen a lot of the freshmen yet, but I think there's probably an NFL player or two. Jordan Ross, Mike Matthews, guys that haven't gotten on the field yet. I suspect that they are NFL players. They just, like I said, haven't gotten on the field yet. So,
yeah. Well, I echo your sentiments about, especially the interior of defense. Or one of those guys I've seen play both the little exterior, like 3-tech, and then kick outside. You got to, yeah. There's 2 or 3 guys on the line I really like, and I agree with you on that. That corner who transferred in from Oregon. Obviously, Nolen, there's always the same deal in down there in Soonerland. Tell me about who are some of the guys that line up there that you think will be playing on Sundays and why.
Just real quick on those Tennessee guys. The guy, Brew McCoy, wide receiver, incredible. Like the size, him and Thornton at wide receiver. Like I'm a big fan of both those guys. Dylan Sampson, I'm a big fan. James Pierce, obviously, big fan. So he's got some guys over there. They're going to make some noise once draft time whirls around for sure. For Oklahoma, one thing, it's interesting to me the guys that have kind of taken a step back this year. And a lot of that is just for other guys have stepped up, and then the rotation has just gotten a lot deeper, especially on the defensive line. And I'll give you an example of a guy right now, R. Mason Thomas. Leading the team, he has 5.5 sacks, 12 tackles, and all 5.5 of those sacks have been in the fourth quarter in the last 2 drives of games. He got 3 sacks in a row against Tulane, including a forced fumble on 1 drive. First down, second down, third down, he strips the ball, takes off with it. Got a half a sack against Tennessee, and then 2 more sacks against Auburn, again, fourth quarter, trying to wrap the game up. He just shows up. I'm curious, and I've been trying to pay attention to what it is about him that fourth quarter, when the game's on the line, he seems to be running around like he's not played in a year, like just absolutely fresh. But I really like him a lot. I just like to see something outside of the fourth quarter from him. And defensive line is, I mean, really, coming into this season, people thought David Stone was a shoo-in. Coming in as highly regarded freshman, one of the top prospects in the country at any position, and the rotation has been so good and so deep, he's hardly seeing the field, which is a good thing. You've got Demonic Williams, the TCU transfer. He's going to be there. Can't really, one of the guys who stepped back but is still playing okay is Billy Bowman at safety. He's missed more this year. I've noticed him not making a lot of the plays that he made last year. But then there's another guy named Robert Spears Jennings who's grading out weekly as one of the top players in the country at his position. And so, there's a guy that's going to be making some plays. And a guy to remember is a 5'9" corner named Eli Bowen. His brother Peyton's on the team. Eli he's 5'9", he's short. He's not going to be like a high pick, but he plays so big. I want to say it's against Tennessee that, they matched him up against some 6'4" receivers. And even Coach Venables said, he's watching film. He said they're going to come after him. And, they could not complete a pass on him. He just plays super big, super athletic. A guy, Bill, you and I have talked about even last year that's disappeared this year so far is Ethan Downs. Again, I think another one of those guys just kind of getting lost in a rotation. Numbers are way down. You don't see him in those plays. But this game last year is when he first really made a name for himself. tomorrow. There's the picture of him. He's laying on Quinn Ewers and saying, "I hope you have a rest nice of the day, Quinn." Whatever he was saying to him, but he's a guy like I just keep waiting for him to have that game. Trace Ford, the Oklahoma State transfer. He's the first couple of games, nothing from him. The last 2 or 3 weeks has made really big, important plays. That's a guy I think that's going to get an invite somewhere for sure. Grayson Halton, and I mean, it can't go any further without talking about Denny Stutzman again. Just
there we go.
What a tremendous blessing he was to Coach Venables that he came back. Came back another year. I feel like now we can influence guys to stay with a little bit of extra funding now out in the wide open. And so I think that helped bring him back. Whatever package they put together for him, I appreciate that. But he's almost, to me, he's a more physical, faster Rocky Calmus.
That's a pretty good comp.
He covers a large amount of the field. He's that Brent Venables defense. He drops shallow where he's supposed to drop shallow. He drops deep when he's supposed to be deep. He knows how to his coverages. Sometimes he's a little suspect against the run, but even then, like he's not. It's not that he's bad at it. It's just that's not his strength. But he's making plays everywhere.
He was all over the place against Tennessee.
Oh,
I mean, he was there. He shut off the middle against the pass. He got downhill versus the run.
Yeah, I want to say he had 10 tackles or 8 or 9 tackles at the half in that game. Huh. Like his stat line for that game was pretty incredible. He's all over the place. He really is, and very smart. It's hard to say what the linebacker market's going to be for next year. Late first, early second, somewhere in there for somebody like him. Maybe, depending on how he finishes up this season, what he looks like, if he stays healthy, that type. The one thing, it's weird to say this, last year Tyler Guyton showed up as far as NFL offensive lineman, that really wasn't all that high, but of course, Bill Bednall's always going to have work at Warriors. They're going to go to the combine, impress, and get drafted higher. But it's weird to look at an Oklahoma offensive line and not see that anywhere. I don't see that guy at all on the offensive line. Right now, going in tomorrow, Bill and Steve, this actually happened in the Tennessee game, and since then, the top 6 wide receivers on the depth chart are out to injury.
Top 6.
Top 6. Nick Anderson tried to play against Tennessee. He played 1 snap, and now they're saying he's not coming back for the year. It's we've got guys running out there that I'm having to look at the program to figure out who they are at those positions. Because I thought Burks, Burks is going to be one of those guys that'll he'll work out really well, and so far he's been the consistent playmaker as far as wide receiver, but he's out and hurt. I feel for both these quarterbacks, Jackson Arnold and Michael Hawkins, because there's not a lot out there as far as weapons. That Tatum, the freshman running back, is going to be special. He's going to be good, but I'm telling you, I'm watching a Tennessee game and I'm like, are we just soft? Or are we really getting hurt? Because it was like there for a while. It was almost like one play after another. The guys were getting carted off. He's supposed to be back tomorrow. We'll see. It's weird to look at an Oklahoma offense and say I don't really see that guy. that's going to be
Yeah,
special.
for a long time, Oklahoma's been they've been the team you face that scores a lot of points and gets a lot of points scored on them.
Right. And it's funny is now we just look at this team and we go, man, you put this defense with one offense from Lincoln Riley, any one of them, just pick one. And like it's an unbeatable football team. I mean, it's just like how you just can't lose with that. But then it's like, can we not have offense and defense at the same time? Is there any way to get those two things working together? Because here's another stat for you. Last year, game-winning drive against Texas to win the game. Dylan Gabriel to Nick Anderson in the corner, end zone touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Those 11 guys on the field, none of them will be playing tomorrow.
Huh.
Not one.
Wow.
And so, again, it's just weird to see. Now, I will tell you this. I believe that Michael Hawkins is going to be a special player at quarterback. His dad, just DNA from his dad, Michael Hawkins, just incredible athlete. Michael Hawkins Jr. has been training with Kyler Murray's father since high school. Played in big time environments. Before he came to Oklahoma in high school. Was really impressed with the way he handled himself against Tennessee. When he came in, I just thought that's it. We're season's over. I mean, really, I thought that Tennessee game, the way we played in that first half, like this is our season. We will not score on anybody, and defense will have to do everything to even make us competitive. And some of those places where he just took off, some of the plays he made on his feet, the plays he made against Auburn. It was Auburn, and Auburn's not good, but he made plays. Guy in his first start, his first full game, come out and he did what he had to do to win. But he'll be special. Bill, do you remember his dad, the corner, Michael Hawkins?
Yes.
I mean, what an incredible athlete.
This is happening more and more to me, Nolan. I'm living in fear that somewhere Anthony Dorsett, who is Tony Dorsett's son, has a son who's about to declare somewhere and start playing college football. And they'll be on my third generation of prospects. So I'm living in fear at this point, Nolan. We would have a 4-hour show if I named all the 2-generation prospects I'm on at this point. God, I hope there's not a 3rd generation coming soon, but there probably is.
Yeah, it's happening. Sadly, Bill, we've been around a long time. Steve, you too.
Yes, sir.
And
Oh,
it's just part of it, I guess.
Old when Ryan Clark's son was taking college visits, I was like, no,
man. Yeah, and it's hard to gauge these. I mean, truthfully speaking, it's hard to gauge these kids separate from their fathers. Some of them, you expect father has this ability, son's going to have this ability, and a lot of them, it's not transferred. It's not.
It's a reminder of what kind of ridiculous freak the actual people who are NFL prospects are.
Yes,
it's funny. Okay, I'll let you finish up in a second. I was on my way to work today, and I saw somebody wearing the 3/4 zip, whatever it's not quite it's sort of a sweatshirt, but kind of not, sort of a sweater, but kind of not, that thing. And it said NSU, but it was the Northwestern State University colors. And I was like, wait a second. I'm looking at this guy, and he's probably late 20s, early 30s. It's like, wait a second. Did you play football at Northwestern State University? He said, yes. And I'm looking at him a little harder. And I said, wait a second. And I said, were you an undersized defensive tackle? He said, yes. I guess people don't. He's a large person, right? I want to make it clear he's a very large man. But, it's a weird world where you look at a man who's probably 267 pounds. Were you undersized? But he said yes, and I could tell. I was like, why do you know this about me or whatever? And I said, around what years were you there? And it's like, wait a second, you were number 19? No, was 19? No, I think it was a low number. It was like it was not a normal D tackle number. And he was like, said he said his first name was like, was your last name Bongo or something like that? He said, and I was close, and he corrected me on his last name. I was like, yes. So we had this conversation, and then it had to get off. He had to get off and go to his job. He's working in the medical field now. But point is that I'm looking at this guy who was killing it in college, despite being undersized, but got no love for clearly obvious reasons. I mean, he was probably best suited to maybe the indoor game, maybe, but he had a biochemical something engineering degree, so he made as much or more probably his first year with a normal people job that he would have made chasing the dream playing in AF2. In fact, I'm sure he made more.
And a lot less pain. A lot less
pain
and agony.
Yes, right. All of his brain cells fire off in the right order now. But it is funny to realize we were talking about this, right? I said, I walked on. I was at a small school and I still had to walk on. And there were guys walking on with me who were running like 4.3. Like, how are you a walk on? What is going on here? But he was talking about how he was the man in high school, right? Set all these records, blah, blah, blah. He gets to Northwestern State University, which, it's a solid program, but not exactly a powerhouse either. But he's looking at it like, holy crap, why is everyone so big, right? And it's a reaction that you have when you first try to play college football. Why is everyone so good and everyone so big?
Right.
And then you try to put into your head what it must be like to go to an NFL camp. It has got to be the greatest shock to someone's system you could ever suffer from, right? We all can think of all the famous quote unquote busts, right? Guys who were just amazing, who just had not about guys who like underperformed or maybe were a little disappointing. I mean, guys who flat out could not play in the NFL after being great in college. And the surprising thing is it doesn't happen more than it does. The NFL is a ridiculous place full of people that should not exist, Nolen.
Well, and that's what even just going back to Michael Hawkins Sr. Michael Hawkins Sr. was homeless, lives in Dallas.
Right.
Oklahoma recruits him. He comes to Oklahoma. He plays 5-6 games, and he gets kicked off the team.
Yep.
And he doesn't play football for a couple of years. He comes back, works out, and all of a sudden, he is that good enough of an athlete. And I was talking to my son about this even a couple of days ago. Michael Hawkins Sr. was such a great, outstanding athlete that after a couple of years of not doing anything, the guy got picked up by Green Bay because he was that fast. He was, 6'2", 6'1", 6'2" corner, had speed, could work out. And it's like, how incredible of an athlete you must be that you at that stage, you're not sharp. You're, you can work out and run all you want to, but as far as making football plays, you've not been doing much of anything. I think he played like a few games of arena ball somewhere in those 2 years.
Arena ball, and then wasn't he literally in a warehouse driving a forklift or something right before?
Yes. Yes. And I'm like, son, that is a true athlete. That is of all the things that I've heard in my lifetime, that's a top 10. That's a top 10 that a guy can still walk in and at that level and make an NFL team and play there for a few years, make money doing it. And I'm thankful that his speed has passed. I know his speed has passed on to his son.
Yes.
And so I'm thankful. I'm thankful for that part of it. I think the upside for Michael Hawkins Jr. is better than Jackson Arnold. And I mean, I'm not saying that now that we've seen some Jackson Arnold, how it didn't work out. I think you take the RPO stuff away, let Jackson Arnold just go play football. I think the guy will probably look 100 times better. But, Michael Hawkins Sr. said, why would you send your son to Oklahoma when they just brought on 5-star recruit, number 2 dual threat quarterback in the class? Why would you send your son there? And he's like, we're going to compete for the starting job. And like people were kind of scoffing at him, like, yeah, right. Jackson Arnold is going to be it. And here we are. The guy's doing amazing things. Real quick, tomorrow's game.
Yes.
I gotta go with my brain, as much as I hate it. And I'm going 28-17 bad guys. You know, I'm hoping it's a 2014 Sugar Bowl Trevor Knight moment.
There we go.
You know, that offense was in the crapper. Dallas Cowboy tight end Blake Bell had been our quarterback that year. That's how bad we were.
Yes, I remember. The Bell
and then Trevor Knight comes in against Alabama and looks like he's the greatest quarterback that's ever lived, and throws for 360 against Alabama. I'm hoping for that kind of experience tomorrow, where it's like, oh my goodness, but I really don't expect it. Not with you got top 6 receivers out. Running back room's kind of still a mess. Offensive line has not been good. I just don't see how it's possible.
Okay, question. Are you at the point where you look at some of your maybe reserve defensive backs who've played some wide receiver and be like, hey, how'd you like to see the field some more, youngster?
Hey, it's funny you just said that, because there's a kid named Jacoby Johnson they brought in, who was a top-ranked DB, but also played wide receiver, that they have put him on offense. They put him on offense in the bye week, and so for 2 weeks he's been working with offense. I was told that they have a limited package that features him. I know that part is true. I know that with one guy, I know that's happened. But I'm telling you right now, I think you or I would be about the second or third best option that they have.
Well, that's disturbing and frightening. Speed was never my forte, even at my peak. I think on the best day of my life, I ran in the upper 4.6s on the best day of my life. I think I ran a 4.67 at one point. So I tried. My junior year, I tried walking on a couple of times, and I was tiny the first time. I was 100. I was not quite 158 pounds, 150 something pounds, and even at Norfolk State in those days, that wasn't going to get it done. So as an ROTC cadet, I had access to the weight room, and I also went to wrestling. So I used to get access to the weight room for that. So I was eating and lifting and eating. And by the time I got to my junior year, I was up to about, if I really ate a lot, I could get up to about 174 pounds. Until like a practice tour, to that'd be down to 160 something again, 168 or whatever. But I can at least step on the scale at a certain point and say I'm 174 pounds. I remember I ran 4.67. I was eventually a deep on the depth chart at free safety and strong safety. I was on the depth chart, both free and strong safety. I have one statistic. I blocked one punt in a driving rainstorm against the Shaw Bears. That was my statistic.
You got one. You got one.
I got one. I got a statistic. But yes,
you're like the Rudy. You're like the Rudy of small college football.
Yes, the Rudy of no one cares small college football. But before I wrap up, I'm going to jump back to Steve for a second. I'll come back to you, Nolen. We've talked about what success looks like this season for you. Obviously, you want to make a bowl game, maybe playoff. Well, not the playoffs, but tell me, Steve, what would have to happen for this team that you're looking at now by this time next year to be a team that maybe is undefeated and headed towards the playoffs? Or
they just got to be more consistent on offense. I mean,
okay.
If they find consistency, if Nico finds where he essentially hits his high, his high points are consistent and not every now and again. I mean, they could win a national championship this year. I mean, they could. If they start scoring, at high rates, and there have been receivers that were open, they just didn't hit them. If they hit them at high rates, I mean, you score points and keep other people from scoring. That's how you win. So their problem is just getting that first part going. But I was going to tell you, I had my I'm old moment this year. So I was watching Miami, that first game that they won, and they bring in this running back, Chris Johnson Jr.
Oh God!
And I was like, what? That is that CJ2K's son?
Oh,
How did that happen?
oh my God! Oh, my God. Oh, that's rough. Oh, that's and I think the late Chris Henry has a son who's playing college football too, right?
Yep.
Is that right? I think it's right, right?
Yep. I can't remember who he plays for now, but I know that's a name.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was one thing when Jack Elway, the third or whatever he is, when John Elway's son, kind of futzed around a little bit at Arizona State, and I think he transferred maybe to Colorado towards the end, and he didn't like football that much, frankly, but he knew what was expected of him, and I was like, okay, I can deal with that. I was fairly young when Elway was out there doing his thing, but we're talking about guys that my kids were born when when these guys were playing. I am not ready for them to have sons who are in college.
No.
Same question for you, Nolen. For the team to be by this time next year undefeated, or maybe has one close loss, but is really well positioned to be a team that goes to the playoffs, maybe wins the national championship. What has to change, or what has to happen?
Well, and I'll back up what Steve said. There's, the eyeball test doesn't mean much, but when pregame, I get to the OU Tennessee game, I'm checking out, walking around, seeing who's who. Got to walk out on the field a bit, kind of watch workouts. Tennessee passes the eyeball test. The guys that they have that really truly, if they get their offensive stuff together, that this could be a season that they make a playoff. I truly believe that. They have great running backs, they have great wide receivers, they're good up front on defense. Just Heupel's got to trust Nico, let him air it out some, let him stretch defenses a little bit more, get a little more consistent. But I truly believe that's a team that can make a playoff this year. For us, it's going to have to be, there's going to have to be a change offensively, scheme wise. It's all, the changes are going to have to be all on the offensive side of the ball. There's going to have to be someone who has a system of their own, not trying to run someone else's system, someone who can recruit, and then able to keep players that we have. We do have some pieces that are good, and somehow be able to stay healthy. You can't have your top 6 wideouts out at the same time. You can't. Kendall Dobie on defense, who made a big play against last year against Texas, he made an interception and caused a fumble. He's out tomorrow for injury. The injury list for Oklahoma. Now I have my own feelings on what's causing that, and his name rhymes with Slitty, but we had this issue his first time around, and then he left, and that kind of went away, and now it's already back again. Somehow the injury bug is biting one room. But anyway, there's just going to have to be some changes offensive wise. There has to be an offensive identity. I can tell you right now, I don't know what this team wants to do when they have the ball. I don't know.
Speaking to that, has Oklahoma had an offensive coordinator that isn't one of Mike Leach's children, grandchildren, or great grandchildren since Bob Stoops was there?
And that's the thing is, even Mike's system, if you want your team to go 7-5 and 6-6, Mike's system worked the last few years. Now, I mean, as Mike's an offensive GM, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, you look at his since 2008, the teams he coached, I mean, they would win 6, 7, 8 games, make a bowl. And if your team is satisfied with that, then, hey, there you go. But at some point, you've got to get out of that. You got to get out of that realm. Right now we're doing Art Brow's offense. That's what we're trying to run, which came with Jeff Lebby, Art Brow's son-in-law, and Seth Luttrell does not know how to run that offense. and not only is it not working, he doesn't know what to do with it, and he almost, in some cases, I feel bad for him because he's trying to do something he doesn't know how to do. But I just even the Browns offense. Remember, there was a time there was a 5-6 year span of that Browns offense was just unstoppable, just unstoppable. But you look at even at Mississippi State right now, you look at Kendall Browse, what he's doing. Like the offense is, it's just not as unstoppable as it used to be. The shelf life is there, the expiration date is approaching, and you've got to learn to adjust and get out of that. So, Steve, I hope the next hire breaks Brock's heart. I hope I hope it makes him angry because that's who I hope it is. But we got to get out of this air raid, this system, and move on to something else.
How would you feel about a name like Joe Brady?
I love that. I would welcome that. I honestly, I tell you, Bill, this is gonna sound crazy. Steve, also,
Okay.
this is gonna sound crazy. I want an offensive coordinator that doesn't have a nickname for his offense.
Oh, okay.
Like
Okay.
when Alex Grinch came in and he's like they called it the Speed D. That's that's what it was. They had a gimmick name to it, and I was
Yes.
like, I hate gimmick names. Usually, any offense or defense with a gimmick, it's it just long term it just doesn't work. I
That's
just
an interesting. Yeah.
I don't want a gimmicked. I don't know what is the Georgia offense, the Alabama offense called? What's the special nickname for that?
Whip your ass.
Exactly, exactly. Like exactly. Like I don't want an offense that has some kind of cute little tag to it. Like
Right.
I want a guy that can line up, run the ball when you need to run the ball, and you can pass the ball when you need to pass the ball. That's pretty much it.
Well, I'll tell you this: the one guy that never gets mentioned as an offensive genius, but has scored everywhere he's been is Jerry Kill. So his teams have scored points everywhere he's been,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that he had Kane Womack in Alabama. They thought they swore that Vandy must have been playing with 17 players because they just never knew where the ball was.
Right.
Oh
and
yeah.
it's funny because, and we'll, I guess we'll sort of close out after this little segment here, but I mean, this is a guy that Diego Pavia wasn't like somebody that was a 4 or a 5 or even a 3-star. I mean, I guess it depends what rating system, but 2 or a 2 on most systems. But first of all, that's a tough dude. He took some shizots, man. He took some, I mean, God bless him and the cold tub attendant, right? Whoever's in charge of get that guy back ready to play again, because that's gonna be some work. But that is a tough kid. I watched him back at New Mexico State, which of course is where he was. I guess he and Jerry Kill first encountered each other, and that great turnaround, amazing turnaround that they had out there. There are certain people that never get talked about as offensive geniuses. Robert Anai leaves Virginia, and their offense goes from being really, really productive and explosive to one of the worst offenses I saw that season. And while he wasn't able to recapture quite the same magic at NC State that he had at BYU or at UVA, he still was getting some things done that, like I said, UVA certainly wasn't able to get done with not all the same players, but a lot of the same players. I think that guys like that, for whatever reason, get overlooked, and I'm never quite sure why. Why Robert Anai isn't talked about as one of the better offensive minds in the game, I'm not sure. But yes, I'm with you on what you just said.
Well,
Gentlemen.
Hey, just real quick, this one more guy that's doing it this year. If we want to, Dirk Cutter at Boise State.
Yeah, there we go. In his third tour of duty, is that right?
Listen, I would throw all the money at him to get him.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, all of it. Just
right.
Come here and we're not asking you to be the head coach. Just run this offense.
Right.
But yeah,
that's a good pull because he is a really and he's very flexible, right? He's a guy that he can do it a lot of different ways. One of his tours of duty through there, they were one of the better running teams I saw that year. And they did it, but they did some of it out of the pistol, they did some of it out of the gun, they did some of it in the power eye. They sometimes had no tight ends, sometimes 2 tight ends or 3 tight ends, 3 wide, 4 wide, 5 wide. Like I said, pistol, conventional shotgun, and some even like wing T-ish stuff. Like he does it. I don't know how he has so many different things going on, but he has everything. His offense has everything in it.
And do it all well. Does it
And do it all
all
well. Thank you. Right. That's the other
at a high level.
Do it all at a high level. That is amazing. First of all, it means he has smart kids. Like they do a great job of finding smart football players because there's a lot in that offense.
Yeah.
And flexibility. The offensive lineman must be brilliant and really, really athletic because they're asked to do zone stuff, gap stuff, just sort of slam your man into the turf stuff and get out and fly because they do a lot of stuff in the screen game. He's got one of the better screen attacks I've seen in college football. So that's a guy who's got some of everything going on. So you're right. That's another good one. Those are good names. I'm gonna throw out a guy who's I think is currently, I don't know if maybe he's a quarterback's coach again, or he might be on the streets. If he's on the streets, he shouldn't be. But Alonzo Pep Hamilton is a guy that I've always liked, and he's tremendous at molding quarterbacks. He likes the running game too. Like he's not a guy that just wants to throw the football, but he's really done a good job of molding quarterbacks. He's been in both the college and the pro game back and forth, like a cutter, right? Back and forth for a long time. He's, in my mind, also wildly underrated as a game planner, play caller. And he hasn't called plays, I think, the last 2 jobs he's had, but he did it at one point when he was at Stanford, and when Stanford was really good. Right. So that's a guy I also would throw in there.
Yeah, he was what? He was at the Chargers.
He's been with the Chargers.
And I kind of would, and the Houston Texans.
Yep.
I would like to have somebody that had some NFL to their game. Have some diversity to what they do, and really the ability to take the roster you have and do work to their strengths. Work with what you have, like Dirk Cutter has done.
Yes. Right.
Like the old school guys used to do, where it wasn't like, well, here's my thing. This is what I do. Barry Switzer had to go to the I formation,
right,
for a while.
Right.
I mean, of course, he ran the wishbone to Troy Aikman, but that's a whole other thing. But you have to be able to make adjustments to the players that you have.
Right.
And what happens when you get these guys with the systems, they try to recruit to their systems, but not everybody can run their system. And so what do you do when someone is not doing special inside your system? Do you have the ability to work with what you have? And that's what you don't see in a lot of coordinators now.
Yep. So, well, one is, I hope, since you guys teams will not face each other anymore, you now root for each other's teams as well as your own to do well. But I'm going to ask you, Steve. Now, I know, Steve, you're not fully all the way back doing this thing, but I will still try to bring you back at some point to talk ball some more because I love your insights, and I hope you will at some point, slowly but surely make your way back to writing and talking about the game some more. You're very good at it, and you're one of my favorites. So I appreciate you returning from your slumbers at least a little bit to join us here tonight. So, Steve, I don't know if you're working on something besides work, like normal people do. But if you do have anything football-ish going on, you can tell us about it.
Actually, I don't have too much. I'm actually just mainly on Twitter, and that's pretty much about it because My life is pretty much now work and Charlene and I watch a lot of football, so I still have because I enjoy the game, so that's the thing about it. So I watch a lot of football, but as far as writing on it and doing anything, not a whole lot. I do look out for some people for the Titans, every now and again. Hopefully, we can get a little bit better. So I can. I just want an elite quarterback, before I die.
Okay. Well, I would love to see you write an article about that. We'll post it on Team MBS Media. Can the Titans have an elite quarterback before my friend Steve dies? And we'll start the countdown clock. So that'll be fun. And Nolen, tell people where they can find you on Twitter and what you're up to.
So at NJ Lake, right now, I am. My quest this year is I'm going to I'll leave here and as soon as we get off, my bags are packed. I'll be heading to Dallas to Deep Ellum to watch the Saturday or the Friday night fights before the game on Saturday.
Right.
Massive food fight will be happening sometime tonight, I'm sure. At Deep Ellum is pretty interesting. So right now the quest is I'm going to every game, home and away. I missed Auburn because of the hurricane, and I did not feel comfortable going there. But I did go to Texas A&M and Arkansas and Dallas. So even then, I was back attending, and so just kind of keeping notes and that's kind of detailing my adventures and I love the Tennessee folks. Had a great time with the Tennessee people here that came in for the game. Great fan base, great people. I feel like we've kind of joined together in unity since then for despising of the other UT, and so we've united on that. But the plan is to gradually begin to I'm still hooked with the Big 12, and with Oklahoma State still playing and or supposedly and kind of keeping notes for that too. But I'm telling you right now, with all the teams in SEC, I think a person could just spend all their time on SEC football, NFL draft. The amount of kids that are coming out of the SEC now is just, incredible. And so, usually that and just coaching kids and coach AAU basketball and baseball and anything sports related, I'm in it.
Excellent. Well, I will definitely bring both of you back again at some point before the season's over. Steve, please tell people, I know, even though you may not be putting out a lot of content other than your Twitter feed, but tell people where they can find you on Twitter. Well, X or whatever the heck it's called. Yes, X, I guess.
So at Morton 101368, that's the Twitter handle. And sometimes I'll put out some R Studio stuff. I still dabble around doing that a little bit, putting the little helmets on the graphs, but mostly it's going to be, you see me commenting, it'll probably be about the Titans or the Vols or maybe a little baseball. My dad was a huge Yankees fan, so I'm cheering for the Yankees in the playoffs now. So, story about my dad, he drove the bus at MTSU, and he actually, you mentioned a hurricane. He was standing on the sidelines when MTSU played Georgia Southern in the middle of a hurricane. They would not. They could. The two head coaches could not agree on rescheduling the game, so they played it right in the middle of the hurricane.
Yeah. Wow.
My dad said never been so wet in his life.
That is, well, yeah, I don't think I've ever heard anything quite like that before. Well, both of you gentlemen, thank you so much. On behalf of my co-host who had to run, I want to thank you on behalf of Team MBS Media once again. Nolen, you've ooched your way up a little bit up in the FOTS, friend of the show rankings. You are now breaking inside the top 5, gaining on Donovan James, gaining on Josh Keatley. So keep
those are some big names.
Right, you're gaining on them. You're gaining on them. You got a good chance. So yes, we'll bring you back. I promise. And once again, Steve, you're not in the top 10 yet, but you've got a chance. So we'll bring you back, and you'll get a chance to climb in the rankings as well. And if you get your camera working, that might push you well into the top 10. But once again, I just want to thank you both. It has been a great time. I've learned a lot. Both these programs I've been watching since I was a small child. I've seen these programs sort of change direction, change the colors and sometimes of the uniforms. More importantly, the colors of the players have changed quite a bit since I first started watching these two programs. So it has been a really, really interesting thing to sort of see the difference in these programs. And of course, both these programs ran the ball, probably 92.5% of the time when I first started watching them. And to see how much, football, not just there, but everywhere has changed, it's just been an amazing thing. Once again, I thank you both for your time, your talents, and your attention. And I will do this with somebody again in another week. But that is it. We are OUT and out. We will see you again soon, people.